Hey, what's going on guys, Kris here with another episode of Battlefield 5 Weapon Versus, where I stick two guns side by side, run over all of those stats, and let you know exactly how they're going to stack up to one another. I'm going to be honest, I'm not exactly a massive fan of MMGs for obvious reasons. They can be fun to use, but a proper pain in the arse to be killed by. They're often favoured by window campers and corner dwellers, but they do offer some great defensive firepower, and it's time for me to pit two of them against each other. In this video, I'm going to be covering two of the cruelest MMGs in the game, that are definitely going to give your enemies a reason to hate you. The first weapon is Hitler's buzzsaw itself, the MG42, one of Germany's most infamous machine guns, well known for being extremely effective and genuinely terrifying during the Second World War. The other weapon is the Vickers gas operated, aka the VGO, another rapid-firing machine gun which was originally designed to be mounted on aircraft, but was later adapted for ground use and used by Allied forces. These two weapons both share a lot of similar traits, and are two of the support's most aggressive MMGs. But they also have quite a few differences regarding their stats, allowing them to perform better than each other in certain ways. Just like normal, I'm going to be splitting this video up into different categories, taking a look at the gun's deadliness, precision and reliability, giving you all of those similarities and differences along the way, and then wrapping things up at the end, summarising the key aspects of both weapons. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Now it's safe to say that neither the MG42 or the VGO are going to have a problem when it comes to their deadliness, with them both being devastating bullet-spewing monsters. Arguably two of the most dangerous weapons in the whole game. They both follow the same damage pattern, giving them the same sort of bullet damage as a lot of the other support machine guns. They're both going to deal the standard damage of 25 up to 10 meters, allowing for a 4-shot kill in close quarters. And then that damage is going to start to slump off, dropping down to 20 at 50 meters. Up to that point, you'll be able to take someone down in 5 bullets, but if they're any further than this, then it's going to take an extra shot to seal the deal, with damage continuing to drop even more up to 75 meters, eventually leveling out at the gun's minimum damage of 18.5. So in relation to each other, the MG42 and the VGO both share the very same damage values, but compared to most of the other automatic weapons from the other classes, they actually hit a teeny bit harder over range. The guns do have access to incendiary rounds, which are going to help to increase damage, but only to planes. And because they both happen to have this specialization, it doesn't give any of the weapons a specific advantage over the other in this area. So it all comes down to that fire rate to decide which gun is the nastiest meat grinder. And looking at their base values straight out of the gate, the MG42 is going to pepper its victims with more hot lead in a shorter space of time, with a blisteringly fast fire rate of 981 RPM, so a bit faster than the VGO, which has a base fire rate of 830 RPM. Roughly about 17% slower than the MG42. The VGO still has a very respectable fire rate, being faster than other MMGs, and if you apply the light bolt specialization, you can actually match the base MG42, ramping that fire rate up to the same speed of 981 RPM, giving it an equal amount of stopping power and the exact same kill times. But if you want to crank things up to the next level, applying the same light bolt spec to the MG42 is going to bump that fire rate up by an extra 219 RPM, to a stupidly fast 1200 RPM, essentially turning the weapon into a hose pipe of death, just when you thought the MG42 couldn't get any angrier. This once again makes it the deadlier choice, and although you'll have to sacrifice other, possibly more practical specializations in order to make the gun so brutal, being able to lower those kill times to such a drastic extent technically gives the MG42 more potential when it comes to killing quickly, all depending on those specialization choices of course. So with the MG42 and VGO being rapid firing monsters, you can expect a fair amount of recoil to come as a trade-off, and being a pair of MMGs, you're not going to be able to aim down sights without that bipod being set up, massively lowering their accuracy when you're on the move, being restricted to hip fire only. But out of the two weapons, it's no surprise really to see that the faster firing gun happens to have the heaviest amount of kick, with the MG42 having a slightly higher vertical recoil figure of 0.7 instead of 0.65, and with it also having a slightly higher horizontal value of 0.35 instead of 0.3. Not only making the VGO the more accurate choice of the two, but also making it the easiest to control in automatic fire. Not to mention the fact that the MG42 is typically going to fire faster, and so that's also going to affect the speed in which said recoil accumulates. So basically, because the gun's got a higher RPM, recoil is generally going to seem even more exaggerated, with it stacking up a little bit quicker. This will probably mean that targets are going to seem easier to hit with a VGO, and it might also mean that it'll be a bit more effective to use for longer range takedowns. Whereas the MG42 will probably seem a bit more like a spray and pray gun that'll be really punishing against close to medium range targets, but perhaps a tad harder to use against players in the distance. Specializations can be applied to improve precision for both weapons, and the two guns happen to have the recoil buffer, lowering that vertical kick to improve their stability, which will probably allow you to fire longer streams of bullets. But only the VGO can have its horizontal recoil lowered and its accuracy increased, as it's got access to the ported barrel, which will reduce that side to side movement when firing, thus making it about 33% more precise than the MG42. And the fact that the gun can also have its fire rate ramped up to 981 RPM, this can potentially turn the VGO into a more accurate version of the MG42, which is a really nice thing to know. But although the MG42 doesn't have access to the ported barrel, it does have access to high velocity bullets instead, which is going to boost that muzzle velocity from 740 to 840 meters per second, giving it an advantage over the VGO in terms of bullet speed. This probably won't make a huge difference for closer range fights, though it just might help to make the gun feel more usable against moving targets in the distance, moving targets such as planes. Though the main problem with this is that you'll have to essentially sacrifice the recoil buffer spec in order to use it, which will probably mean that you'll have to fire in shorter bursts to keep the weapon stable. Now, reliability plays a pretty important role with these two guns, because with them firing really fast, they can also run out of ammo really quickly too. The VGO uses a 60 round magazine, allowing it to hold 10 bullets more than the MG42's 50 round belt, and because the MG42 dishes out those bullets at a faster pace, it's safe to say that it's typically going to run out of shots quicker, especially if you choose to increase that fire rate even further with the light bolt spec. This pretty much leads to more reloading, and therefore a higher vulnerability, which can be a problematic thing if you get surrounded or caught out at the wrong time. The life doesn't get any easier for the MG42 either when it comes to its reload times, with having the slowest reloads of the two weapons, seemingly making it a far less reliable gun than the VGO. The MG42's tactical reloads take 4.15 seconds to perform, whereas the VGOs are going to be about a second quicker, taking only 3.2 seconds. And it's pretty much the same story when it comes to its empty reloads too, with the MG42s lasting 5.8 seconds and the VGOs only taking 4.3. So the base VGO has the larger ammo capacity, more manageable fire rate, and slightly quicker reload speeds. All great things for keeping you engaged in the action, and for making the gun more dependable in awkward situations. But things all start to change when we get those specializations involved, because although both weapons have very similar reliability affecting upgrades, these are going to alter the behaviour of the guns in pretty drastic ways, allowing them to perform quite differently from their unmodified versions. By using the extended magazine, the VGO's ammo capacity can be bumped from 60 shots up to 100, giving you an extra 40 bullets to play around with, which is almost twice as much as normal. But although this might seem like a sizable upgrade, it's nothing when you compare it to the MG42's extended belt spec, taking away those unimpressive 50 round belts and replacing them with 250 round belts, which is a hell of a lot more than standard. And if you put the gun specs side by side, it's easy to see who's going to benefit more from that specialization. An extra 200 shots is a lot more appealing than a measly 40. This pretty much reverses that reliability into the MG42's favour, as those belts are going to last much longer than the VGO's magazines, and so you'll be able to mow more people down with them without having to worry about getting caught out with an empty gun. The quick reload spec can be applied to both weapons, speeding up those reloads by 15%, and this can potentially make both of the guns even more reliable still, as it can be used in conjunction with their extended ammo capacities. Last thing to point out in this section is that the two guns are going to overheat at the very same rate, so you can fire 51 bullets continuously before either of the weapons are going to come to a standstill, 76 bullets continuously if you've applied the chrome lining spec. Though with the MG42 having that faster fire rate, it'll often seem to overheat at a quicker pace, meaning that you might have to burst fire a bit more, not just to keep it under control, but to also prevent its barrel from burning up so fast as you try to gun your opponents down. So which gun should you choose? They're both devastating weapons that are probably going to annoy your enemies quite a lot, as you mow them down with a wall of bullets. And as far as the guns go in Battlefield 5, these two in particular are deemed to be extremely aggressive, despite their defensive role in the game. The MMGs are all designed to be used in a similar sort of way, and although the MG42 and the VGO might have a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses, there's definitely enough distinction between the two to make them feel like different beasts. The VGO is generally the more accurate choice, which will be easier to keep under control with sustained fire, down to it having the better recoil stats. The fact that the gun can also have its fire rate boosted up to the same speed as the base MG42 could essentially allow you to match its kill times, yet still have the superior precision, making it a much more effective weapon to use over those further distances, and even a more accurate choice when hip firing too, when you're on the move and get caught out by a player close by. Choosing the light bolt spec will limit your choices for making the gun more reliable though, by restricting you to its standard magazines, which still hold 10 rounds more than the base MG42 and are going to be quicker to reload, so it's not the end of the world if you decide to increase its fire rate, but it still leaves you with a bit of a decision to make. The VGO is generally the more well-rounded option that has a better spread of attributes over all its key areas, giving it a nice balance between its deadliness, precision and reliability to make it a very versatile MMG that can cater for most gunfights and situations. The MG42 on the other hand is a bit more of an extreme option that sacrifices accuracy, but can potentially have better attributes for either its deadliness or reliability. It's already a rapid firing weapon to begin with, and that speed can be pushed up even further to the next level, giving you unrivaled firepower that'll allow you to blitz through your enemies before they even know what happened. But this comes at a much greater cost, as sure enough you'll probably be the most dangerous soldier out on the battlefield, though you'll often struggle to survive and stay in the fight, having those smaller belts that'll be emptied a lot quicker, which also take longer to swap over than the VGO's magazines. You'll be putting all of your eggs in one basket, and the combination of poor accuracy and poor reliability can make the MG42 a very deadly but tricky thing to use if you're not careful. Opting for that extended belt instead would be far more practical, though it's going to function like a less accurate VGO with a much larger ammo capacity, with those extra bullets helping to make up for any missed shots. So depending on which specialization path you choose, the MG42 is going to function very differently, giving it more exaggerated pros and cons that'll benefit deadliness or reliability more so than the VGO. But in most cases, you're going to have to fire in shorter bursts to stay on target, possibly making it a less effective weapon to use over longer ranges. So that's basically it for another one guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to be the first to see new content coming out in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.